Hey guys, welcome back to Team 6K. This is Undead, and today we're going to be talking about Code Talker Salamangreats. Before we get into the video, be sure to go ahead and check out last video if you are interested in learning how to play Rose Dragons. So, Code Talker Salamangreats. If you have seen our previous Salamangreat Advanced Guide or our previous Code Talker Advanced Guide, this deck is pretty much using the Salamangreats to accomplish what the Code Talker deck wants to do. Because the Salamangreats are way better at extending than the generic Cyberse monsters, you're going to be able to do a decent amount more in this deck. But if you haven't watched those videos, you might not even know what the Code Talker deck is trying to accomplish in the first place. So this deck relies pretty heavily on the Code Talker Alive skill. So you can use it if you have Decode Talker in your extra monster zone and you set a Recoded Alive to your field from outside of your deck. So Decode Talker, 2 or more effect monsters, and it is a link 3, so you can use 3 monsters, or you can use a link 2 and a link 1, and it gains 500 attack for each monster that it points to. And when your opponent activates a card or effect that targets a card you control, you can quick effect, tribute one monster this card points to, negate the activation if you do destroy that card, and that is not a once per turn. And then Recoded Alive is a trap, and because you are setting it from the deck, you can activate it on the same turn that you set it. But what it does is you can target a link 3 Cyberse link monster you control or is in your graveyard, banish it, and if you do special summon a Code Talker monster from your extra deck. And then its grave effect is that if you control no monsters in the extra monster zone, you can banish this card from your grave, then target one of your banished Code Talker monsters and special summon it. And that grave effect, because it is a trap, will be a quick effect. So the goal is to get Code Talker on the field, activate the skill, and we can use the trap to go into shooting Code Talker. Technically speaking, we don't actually care about this guy's effects. However, you might use his effects at some point. At the start of your battle phase, you can activate this effect. This battle phase, this card can make attacks on your opponent's monsters up to the number of monsters this card currently points to +1. But this turn, when it attacks your opponent's only monster, so that means when they only have 1 monster left, this card loses 400 attack during that damage calculation only, so it will go back to being 23 afterwards. And then at the end of the battle phase, you can draw cards equal to the number of monsters this card destroyed by battle this turn. So you don't actually have to activate that first effect to get that second effect to draw cards at the end of your battle phase. But to be real with you, the only reason that we choose shooting Code Talker rather than any of the other Code Talkers is because of its arrows. Its arrows just happen to be very nice, up, down, and left. It allows us to much more easily co-link with our other link monsters. But why would we use this skill to do that? Well, first of all, if you're going first, it can be a nice survival play. If Decode Talker dies, you can banish it from graveyard, summon a shooting code. Then if shooting code dies, you can banish the trap to re-summon your Decode Talker. And if you go second, you can attack with a Decode Talker, tag it out using the trap, attack using the shooting Code Talker. And it goes even further if we happen to have Signet Backdoor. There's a quick play spell that lets you target a Cyberse monster you control, banish it, and if you do, add a Cyberse type monster from your deck to your hand, whose attack is lower than that monster's original attack, and during your next standby phase, return that monster banished by this effect to the field, and it can attack directly that turn. What's cool about that is, let's say you are going second, you attack with a Decode Talker, you tag it out into a shooting Code Talker, then you use a Signet Backdoor to banish your own shooting Code Talker, which means that your extra monster zone is going to be free again, so you can use the trap to re-summon your Decode Talker and attack yet again. Alternatively, let's say you went first, you summon Decode Talker, set the trap. On your opponent's turn, maybe your Decode Talker dies, but regardless, you use the trap to banish it, to summon your shooting Code Talker, and then on end phase, you use Signet Backdoor to banish the shooting Code Talker, which means your extra monster zone will be free, so you can use the trap to re-summon Decode Talker. Then on your standby phase, the shooting code will be back, and then you'll have both of them on the field at the same time, and that would be lethal damage. The downside of the skill is you can only use it once per duel, and you can only use it if your deck contains at least 12 Cyberse monsters or Signet spell traps, and more importantly, all monsters in your extra deck must have a different name from each other. So unfortunately, we cannot play multiples of any of the cards in our extra deck, we can only play one of each. Another added benefit of the Signet Backdoor, it kind of acts like a Forbidden Lance for the deck, because if your opponent would interrupt your plays, you could Signet Backdoor one of your monsters, and of course it would be banished, but you could also search for another extender. For example, Salamangreat Mirror, which when it's added from your deck to your hand, you can special summon it from the hand, basically turning one of your monsters into another one. Because this is a very aggressive format, a lot of decks can kill you very easily, so you're probably going to want to either interrupt the opponent or have incredibly good survivability. So this deck has solid survivability, but it's not amazing survivability. So we're also going to want to interrupt the opponent, and how we're going to do that is using the quick play spell Signet Crosswipe. It allows you to tribute a Cyberse monster, then target a card on the field, destroy it. But we only play one copy. Why would we only play one copy? Because we can search for it with Microcoder. If a Cyberse monster you control would be used as link material for a Code Talker monster, this card in your hand can also be used as material. And if this card is sent from your hand or field to the graveyard as material for the link summon of a Code Talker monster, you can either add a Signet spell trap from your deck to your hand, or if this card was on the field when used as material, you can add a level 4 Cyberse monster instead. Pretty much always going to be using this from the hand alongside one of our link 2s to go into our Decode Talker. Then the Microcoder will search for a Signet Crosswipe. But why only play 2 Microcoder, right? We want to be able to interrupt the opponent. Well, technically speaking, we can only really use the Microcoder effectively once, because we're only going to be link summoning Decode Talker once. But fear not, we are going to be able to search for it with Lady Debug. We only have 1 copy of it in the deck because it is limited to 2, and so is Salamangreat Balin, which is also mandatory for the deck. When Lady Debug is normal or special summoned, you can add a level 3 or lower Cyberse type monster from your deck to your hand. Fear not, that's also searchable. We can search for it using Signet Mining, which lets you send a card from your hand to the graveyard, add a level 4 or lower Cyberse monster from your deck to your hand. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 copies of Microcoder. Strictly speaking, the 1 copy of Signet Crosswipe counts as one of basically your 6 copies of your interruption. Basically playing 6 ways to get your access to your Signet Crosswipe, including the Crosswipe itself, and then the rest of our deck can pretty much be dedicated to our Salamangreat plays. So the Salamangreats themselves, the Salads just combo, they just combo and combo and combo, and they just keep going. If you want to learn how to play Salamangreats, they are still a very good deck. You can go ahead and check out our Salamangreat Advanced Guide if you have not already, and that guide is probably actually going to be helpful for you, because there's going to be a lot of decision making while you're making combos that you might benefit off of if you know how to play pure Salamangreats. But if that video is too much for you, we can just explain as much as we can here. So Salamangreat Gazelle is the main Salamangreat of the deck. If a Salamangreat monster is sent to your graveyard from anywhere except Salamangreat Gazelle, you can special summon this card from your hand. And if this card is normal or special summoned, you can send a Salamangreat card from your deck to the graveyard except Salamangreat Gazelle. The Salamangreats, if you are unaware, generally tend to have really good grave effects. The 3 grave effects that are really good in this deck are Salamangreat Jaguar, Salamangreat Foxy, and Salamangreat Falco. Salamangreat Jaguar is almost always going to be the one that we're going to send to the graveyard for our standard combo. Again, it is going to depend on the hand, but generally speaking, we're sending this one because its grave effect is the best one for the majority of situations. So this guy does inflict piercing battle damage, but also if you control a Salamangreat Link monster while this card is in your graveyard, you can target a Salamangreat monster in your graveyard except for another copy of itself, shuffle that target into the deck, and if you do special summon this card to your zone that your Salamangreat Link monster points to. So just using cards in your graveyard, just by having a Salamangreat Link monster on the field, it will re-summon itself. Another one that you can send is a Salamangreat Falco. This guy's got 2 effects, but you can only use one of them in a given turn, so you have to pick wisely depending on the scenario. So if this card is sent to the graveyard, you can target a Salamangreat spell trap in your graveyard, set that target to your field. This is the effect that we're usually going to say no to when it's sent to the graveyard, because we want to be able to use the other effect. So if this card is in your graveyard, you can target a Salamangreat monster you control, except for another copy of itself, return that monster to the hand, and if you do, special summon this card. What's so great about this guy is that he combos so well with the other Salamangreats. If you have normal summon a Gazelle and you send a Falco, for example, you can re-summon Falco by adding the Gazelle back to your hand, and then you can turn the Falco into a Link 1, which by a Salamangreat being sent to the graveyard will trigger the effect of Gazelle to special summon itself, so that's 2 monsters on the field. And then Salamangreat Mirror, if this card is added to your hand except by drawing it for your normal draw, you can reveal this card, special summon it from your hand. So if you have this on the field, you can return it to the hand using a Falco, special summon the Falco, and because the mirror was added to your hand, you special summon it, then you have 2 monsters on the field again. And then Foul, if you have it on the field, you return it to the hand using a Falco to summon the Falco, and then because of Salamangreat is special summoned, except for Foul, Foul will also special summon itself with its effect to summon itself if any other Salamangreat is special summoned. So that versatility of Falco is great. However, let's say one of our Salamangreats is destroyed or sent to the graveyard during the opponent's turn, then we special summon a Gazelle from our hand, for example. Then we could send a Falco from deck to the graveyard, and then we would activate that first effect, to reset a Salamangreat spell trap, because then on the following turn the Falco will still be there to activate that other effect. Salamangreat Foxy is the last one we play. When normal summoned, you can excavate the top 3 cards of your deck, and if you do, add an excavated Salamangreat card to your hand. And Foxy does have another effect, however you can only use one of these 2 effects in a given turn. So you have to either choose to excavate the top, or you can not do that and use the other one instead. So if this card is in your graveyard and a face-up spell trap is on the field, you can discard a Salamangreat card, special summon this card, then you can destroy one face-up spell trap on the field. This fully activates and resolves in the graveyard. If your opponent's playing Mech Knights and they have a World Legacy Secret on the field, which would negate all of your monsters as long as they're in the same column as their Mech Knight, then the Foxy would be able to destroy that and not even be negated if it's in the same column, because it would resolve in the graveyard even though it's on the field when it finishes resolving, so that back row is going to get popped. I did mention them already, but the other 2 Salamangreats we play are the Mirror and the Foul. They do have other effects, so like I mentioned before, the Salamangreat Foul can special summon itself if any other Salamangreat is special summoned except for itself once per turn. Also, you can discard a Salamangreat card to target a set spell trap your opponent controls and make that target unactivatable this turn. A Salamangreat Mirror, even though it special summons itself when added to hand, you could also discard another Salamangreat to special summon it. So let's say you have a Mirror and a Falco in your hand, you could use Mirror to discard the Falco and then use the Falco to add the Mirror back to your hand to special summon the Falco. Then because Mirror is added to your hand, you special summon it, and then you have 2 Salamangreats on the field without even normal summoning. Of course, we pretty much play one of each of these except for the Foul, because Foul is the most generic. The rest of them we will always have access to though, because of Salamangreat Circle, because of Lady Debug, which searches most of them, Silent Mining, which searches all of them. It's a quick play spell, so you can use it on your opponent's turn too, and you can add a Salamangreat monster from your deck to your hand. So this is pretty much going to be used to search whatever Salamangreat we need for this scenario. We're almost always going to be searching for Gazelle, because it always gives us something in the graveyard to allow us to continue going, but if we already have the Gazelle, then we can search for whatever other one we want. The Salamangreat Link monsters are pretty important in this deck. Salamangreat Balinks allows you basically to trigger the hand effect of Salamangreat Gazelle by putting a Salamangreat material in the graveyard. And then the Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf is important. It requires 2 fire effect monsters, and if a monster is normal or special summoned to the zone this card points to, you can add a fire monster from your graveyard back to your hand. But for the rest of this turn, you can normal summon or set or special summon monsters with the added monster's name. So generally, you're going to try to get this Salamangreat Gazelle in the graveyard and a Salamangreat Jaguar in the graveyard with any other Salamangreat, including the Balinks. And you're going to have a Sunlight Wolf on the field. You're going to use the Jaguar's effects to return any of your other Salamangreats except for the Gazelle to the deck, to special summon it to the zone that Sunlight Wolf points to, which will trigger the Sunlight Wolf to add back your Gazelle. Adding back Gazelle is important so that you can use it on the opponent's turn or during your next turn. If you have to return the Salamangreat Balink so that you can add back the Gazelle, that is perfectly fine. However, if you have the option to return any other, like a Falco or a Foul or a Mirror or even a Foxy, then you would probably prefer to do that, because Balinks can also be banished from the graveyard to protect one of your Salamangreats from destruction. We also play the Code Talker for weird situations where we're unable to get any other Link 2 on the field, so we can still at least search for our cross swipe if we happen to have a microcoder in hand. Nightmare Unicorn and Nightmare Cerberus are just fantastic utility to have in any Link deck's arsenal. Firewall Dragon can be made in this deck, and it can be made in Interruption depending on how amazing the hand is, but it can also be used as a follow-up play. Regardless, it requires 2 or more monsters. It being a Link 4, that means you use a Link 3 any other monster, 2 Link 2s, a Link 2 and 2 other monsters, or just 4 monsters. And once while this card is face up on the field, you can quick effect target monsters on the field and or in the graveyard up to the number of monsters co-linked to this card. That means it points to them and they point to it too, and return them to the hand. And if a monster this card points to is destroyed by battle or sent to the graveyard, you can special summon a Cyburst monster from your hand, and you can only use each effect of Firewall Dragon once per turn. So if we find ourselves in a scenario we can summon a Firewall Dragon turn 1 and let's say have a Code Talker under it, and they're both pointing to each other, then when your opponent's making their plays, you can return their monster to the hand to interrupt them. That isn't going to happen very often though, but keep in mind that it is possible. Salamangreat Balinks on Link Summon will also search for a Salamangreat Sanctuary. Technically we can activate the Sanctuary just to be a face-up spell trap on the field to summon a Foxy from the grave. Generally speaking though, the Sanctuary is mainly going to be a discard fodder. The nice thing about it being a discard fodder is we could use it as generic discard fodder for Signet Mining, but because it is a Salamangreat card, we can use it for archetypal discard fodder for the Salamangreat Fowl as well. If you're looking to get better at Yu-Gi-Oh in general, I would recommend playing this deck, as this is an incredibly complicated deck to play well. The game plan is definitely simple, however, being able to play against your opponent, learning how to navigate their board and navigate your own hand. If you end up messing up when you're playing this deck, you can very easily look back at the replay and find what you did wrong and learn to do better next time. So the more you play this deck, the better you will get at Yu-Gi-Oh. But since this deck is so complicated, probably going to need to show you a couple combos as well. So I'm going to show you some standard combos, and then I'm going to show you some replays to show you what we can do in real life situations. Good hand, we do have the access to the microcoder, which is going to give us our interruption. We also have Lady Debug and Signet Mining to search for basically whatever Salamangreats we might need. So the priority number one is always to get Salamangreat Gazelle, so gonna do that. Gonna normal summon the Lady Debug since we do have it, which will get us a copy of Salamangreat Gazelle. And then we have the Signet Mining, right? We want to keep the Gazelle and the coder because they are going to be our playmakers, so we're going to search for the whatever Salamangreat we want. Technically, if we didn't have microcoder, we could also search for that. So Salamangreat Mirror, if you add it to your hand, will special summon itself, so I will add that, and then it will special summon itself from the hand. And then since we have a Salamangreat, we can link it off into a Balinks, and since a Salamangreat was sent to the graveyard, we can trigger the Gazelle here. Of course, we're always going to activate the Balinks as well. We'll get that Sanctuary. We're not really activating the Sanctuary though. And then on summon, Gazelle is going to activate its effect, and we're going to almost always send the Jaguar. And we can link them off into the Sunlight Wolf. Since we now have the Sunlight Wolf and we have a Jaguar engraved, also making sure that before we use that Jaguar, that we also have a Gazelle engraved, because we do want to be able to add that back. So I'm going to use the Jaguar, return whatever Salamangreat isn't Gazelle, and probably not Balinks, because Balinks can protect. Return, special summon itself, and then Wolf will activate to add back the Gazelle. Then we can go into our Link 3 play here, Decode Talker using the Sunlight Wolf and the microcoder. Microcoder's effect will activate to search for the Signet Crosswipe most of the time. If you already have it, you could very well search for another backdoor or a Signet Mining. As soon as you summon Decode Talker and resolve that effect of microcoder, you're going to want to activate the skill immediately. The opponent cannot respond to the skill, so if they want to do anything else to you, you want to be able to use the trap. So in hindsight, I probably should have summoned the Lady Debug to the zone that the Decode Talker would have pointed to, so I could use it as a tribute fodder for the negation effect if the opponent wanted to target us. But technically speaking, if you do that misplay, it's not the end of the world, right? You could still use your two monsters as link fodder, right? I could have turned them into a Code Talker, or I could have turned them into a Nightmare Cerberus, then I could have tributed one of those two for the Decode Talker's effect. However, I will show you another play here. While we are here, don't do this all the time, alright? For real, don't do this all the time. But what you can do, technically speaking, is you can use your Decode Talker, one of your other monsters, to go into Firewall Dragon. All it takes to do this play is to have a Decode Talker on one of the monster, then you can use the trap right away, banish that Decode Talker, to special summon. Technically, you could do Code Talker, but we're usually going to do Shooting Code. And it's going to summon to the zone that Firewall points to, and because this one points up, then they will be pointing to each other, and Firewall will have that quick effect to bounce a monster. So then you can set the cross wipe as well, and then you have two interruptions. So that is an option that you could go for. You won't go for it all the time because you might be using too much of your resources. However, definitely keep it in mind. It is a valid and very solid option. Another thing you can do on your opponent's turn is with the Signet Crosswipe, tribute your Salamangreat, whatever Salamangreat you happen to have, destroy one of your opponent's cards, cool. then you could special summon the Salamangreat from your hand. Since the Salamangreat was sent from field to graveyard, then you could use the Gazelle to send something else. Regardless, the Gazelle being on the field is going to make it easier for you to survive. And if you happen to summon it to the zone that Decode Talker points to, the Decode Talker will also be able to tribute it to negate your opponent targeting you. So there's a lot of options you can go for here, depending on what you want to do, depending on what you think your opponent's going to do, depending on your hand. All hands are equal. You can't always end on a firewall, you know what I mean? Sometimes you just have two Salamangreats, one of which, you know, might represent a Salamangreat Gazelle. So I'm going to get that Gazelle real quick. Of course, we always want to have Gazelle. Normal summon the other one. Technically speaking, I already have Jaguar here. However, technically, this Salamangreat could be anything. So I'm going to normal summon it, turn it into a Balynx. And because any Salamangreat was sent to the graveyard, I can special summon the Gazelle. Of course, I'm going to add the field spell as well. And since Gazelle was special summoned or normal summoned, then I can send any Salamangreat from deck to graveyard. I would send a Jaguar here. So regardless of what it was, Jaguar was going to be there. So right here, I'm just going to send, doesn't really matter, I'll send a Falco. And then might as well activate the Falco's effect since I get the circle back on the field to use on the opponent's turn. Then I can link these two off into a Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. I can use the effect of the Jaguar in the graveyard, returning that Falco to special summon itself. And when it does, the Sunlight Wolf will add back the Gazelle. And then I can go into Decode Talker. Of course, I do have the right materials on the field for it, which will then allow me to use the skill. I didn't get my interruption, but I do, however, have the Signet backdoor, and I'll show you in a second what that can do as well. Even though this hand wasn't the best hand in the world, I do have 3 somewhat decent back row on the field and a Decode Talker, and we'll show just how good that is on the opponent's turn. So I'm on the standby phase here, right? I'm going to use the circle immediately. The reason I want to do this is because I can use it to search for a copy of Salamangreat Mirror, because when Mirror is added from deck to hand, I can use it to special summon itself, and I'll special summon itself to the zone that Decode Talker points to. Not only will that allow Decode Talker to gain 500 additional attack points, but also if the opponent wanted to target me with backward removal or whatever, then I could tribute the Mirror to negate it. And if I then tributed that Mirror, that would then trigger the effect of Gazelle in the hand to special summon itself to that exact same zone, meaning that I could negate another targeting effect, as well as sending another Salamangreat from deck to graveyard. Okay, so the opponent is going into battle phase here. He wants to destroy my Mirror. I'm perfectly cool with that because I could either use the Balynx or allow him to destroy it and then special summon the Gazelle from the hand. That is what is so protective about this deck, is our survivability is really nice. They can destroy our Mirror, our Balynx will protect us anyway, and if that isn't enough and if they are able to destroy it anyway, Gazelle will summon itself. So I'm going to say yes to the Balynx, and then during the end phase, right, if we still have our Recoder alive and our Signet backdoor, here's what we can do. So I'm going to use the Recoder alive, banish the Decode Talker, special summon the Shooting Code Talker here. Then we can use the Signet backdoor to banish our own Shooting Code Talker to not only get a search of a monster that is 2300 or less, I'll just search a foul here, but then we can also use the graveyard effect of the trap, Recoded Alive, because we no longer have a monster in the extra monster zone, so we can resummon Decode Talker. And then on our own standby phase, the Shooting Code Talker will come back. So basically all of that, we have a much better field than before, and technically speaking, Shooting Code Talker can attack directly now. So if this guy had 2300 life left, I could just go into battle phase, swing over his monsters, and then deal lethal damage to him. But I don't need to do that. What I can do on this follow-up play is using my Decode Talker and my other monster. I can go into Firewall Dragon, summon it here, and I can use the Gazelle, of course I do have it, but I can also use Firewall Dragon to bounce their monster to make it easier for me to attack for game. And as you can see, I have a full grip of cards here. I have a full grip, but I already have lethal on the field. So if you do not have lethal yet, or you still need to do more things to the opponent, clearly you still have more to do. That is pretty much the power of this deck. The turn 1 of this deck is great, but the follow-up play is where it truly shines. Also, the OTK is very nice in this deck as well. So you can keep going here. However, as you can see, I've got 2 more monsters. I can use both of them to go into a Nightmare Cerberus, discard a card, you know, destroy one of their special summon monsters. I could even use Falco to resummon itself as well, continue going. I haven't even used the Signet Mining in my hand, right? These are going to be things that you're going to be learning as you go, what to do and when to do it, and what you can do to interrupt your opponent's specific deck. And that's another thing that you need to know when you're getting better at Yu-Gi-Oh! Is you need to learn how every deck works, basically. So you can look on the tier list. If there's a deck there you don't know how it works yet, maybe we have a video on it that helps you learn how to play it. But learning how to play it also lets you know when to interrupt it with whatever interruption that your deck provides. So I've basically already shown the main game plan. You're basically trying to get Decode Talker on the field so you can use the skill to get the trap. And that trap and another monster can help you summon. Firewall Dragon is an interruption, or it can be used as a survival play. And we're usually going to be using the Salamangreat engine to go into a Sunlight Wolf, use a Jaguar to resummon itself to add back the Gazelle to our hand so that we have a much better follow-up play. And we can use the Signet Backdoor as well to help us extend, help us make our follow-up play a lot more explosive. But sometimes your hand is just going to help you to kill them right away, turn 1 on the second turn of the duel. So of course I'm going to get the Salamangreat Gazelle. I already have it right. Going to normal summon a Foul. Basically whatever hand you have, you're going to decipher how you're going to get Gazelle on the field. And we have 2 Foul here, you know, so Foul can't trigger off of Foul. However, Foul can trigger off of any other Salamangreat. So normal summon it, act as if that Foul was any other Salamangreat, right? And then we can use the Gazelle here, and then special summon that. Then the Foul will also special summon itself. I like to summon Foul in the middle zone as well, so going to use that. And I like to summon Foul because if I get to this specific point here where I have a Gazelle and a Balings on the field, technically I don't even need to use this Foul. I could just have this as my Decode Talker's fodder. So I'm going to send the Jaguar as always, right? Gonna link off, making sure to use the Gazelle as material because we want to add it back. Then we can use the Grave effect of the Jaguar, returning the Foul, special summon itself, which will then trigger the Sunlight Wolf to add back our Gazelle for next turn. If there is a next turn, there won't be a next turn at all. So I'm going to use the Decode Talker using the Sunlight Wolf and the Jaguar here, so that I still have the Foul to make the Decode Talker bigger and help me to negate targeting if the opponent hasn't. I'm going to use the skill, and I can OTK him right here. And I'm going to show you just how much I can OTK him. So I'm going to go into battle phase, attack with Decode Talker. I don't need to attack with Foul, but I definitely can attack with Foul. What I'm going to do though is I'm going to use the trap, get rid of the Decode Talker, then summon the Shooting Code Talker, and attack again with that. And if that weren't enough for game, of course I do have the Foul to attack for game. However, if we have a Signet Backdoor, we can also use that to immediately get rid of the Shooting Code Talker to search whatever we want, right? So I'll just search for a Lady Debug here, and then we can use the trap from Grave, banish it, resummon Decode Talker, and attack again. That's how much OTK power this deck has. So that's basically the general gist of the game plan that you'll want to be going for when you're playing this deck, and the way that you're going to get there is going to be different depending on what hand you have. So I'm definitely going to recommend that you play this deck a lot, practice it a lot. However, that is basically the general game plan, the 3 different game plans basically. If you want a little bit more of an in-depth guide on how to use the Salamangreats themselves to help you to combo optimally in this deck, please go ahead and check out our Salamangreat Advanced Guide. And if you feel like you're missing something, be sure to let me know, show me a replay, I'll look at the replay and tell you what you might be able to do better next time. But no duel against an AI is going to be able to showcase this deck's abilities better than a duel against another real duelist. So let's get into the replay, shall we? So I'm going first here. As you can see, I have a pretty damn good Salamangreat hand. However, I don't have access to the microcoder. In the case that we don't have access to the microcoder, we still at least have our protective plays. So I'm going to normal summon a Jaguar, and that will trigger the effect of Salamangreat Foul. going to link one of them off into a Balinx, trying to keep the foul in the middle right, trying to keep the non-Jaguar monster in the middle so that we can, have something to tribute for our Decode Talker's effect. And because a Salamangreat was sent to the graveyard, we can special summon the Gazelle from the hand, which will then allow us to send any other Salamangreat from deck to grave. We're going to send a Kaipa Falco, it doesn't really matter, it's just going to be sent back to the deck with the Jaguar anyway. That's exactly what we're going to do. We're going to send that Falco, resummon it, and if we didn't already have the Jaguar, we of course would have sent the Jaguar, right? Then we're going to add back the Gazelle using the effect of the Sunlight Wolf, right? And then we're going to use those two to go into a Decode Talker. We can use the skill to get that trap. We can set our Sign It Backdoor. And here we have a Decode Talker that if the opponent wants to target us, we can negate it by tributing the Salamangreat Foul. And if we tribute the Salamangreat Foul, we're going to special summon the Gazelle from my hand, have another thing to tribute for Decode Talker's effect to negate targeting. So the opponent's going to be playing Blackwings. They normal summon a Zephyros, they special summon a Gale. He targets me. Normally I wouldn't actually negate a Gale, however, because of the fact that it negates and destroys, I see the opportunity to just get rid of his tuner so he can't synchro summon. So he does that, I negate it, and it's destroyed. And then it allows me to trigger the effect of Gazelle in the hand because a Salamangreat was sent from the field to the graveyard, special summon itself, and then send another Salamangreat from deck to grave. I send a Falco. He summons another Gale. Lucky him, huh? So he's going to target me again. I'm going to Decode Talker negate it so he doesn't have a tuner again. My goodness, he can't have a third Gale, right? He does. He's going to use the spell that nobody plays to get the Gale back, summon the Gale again, and now he's going to be able to successfully reduce me. However, he only has one card left in his hand. Even though he still has the tuner, I have successfully prevented him from going into his deep combos here. So he's only going to be able to go into Raikiri. He's going to resummon the Zephyros, and he's going to attempt to destroy me as well. So he'll activate that, and I will, he targets my trap, so I have to use it right away. I'm going to use it to get rid of my Decode Talker to summon Shooting Code Talker, and he's going to attack into me. I'm going to use Sign It Backdoor here. There's another protective play I can do. I'm going to banish the Shooting Code Talker. Of course, it will come back next turn to attack again. However, the cool thing about Sign It Backdoor is it's not just banishing, it's also searching. So I'm searching for the Salamangreat Mirror. Salamangreat Mirror will special summon itself. He can attack into it. Of course, I don't know why he prevented his attack with Raikiri, but regardless, my life points would have been fine. I'm going to banish my Balinx to protect it. He could have attacked me again, it would have been fine. My mirror would have been gone. I didn't necessarily need the mirror, but because my extra monster zone is free, I can now use the grave effect of Recoded Alive to resummon Decode Talker, pointing to his monster so that I'm being not only disrespectful but also gaining 500 attack points. And then on my own standby phase, the Shooting Code Talker will come back. Then I will use the Firewall Dragon. I don't actually need to do anything here. He's got 2300 life points because he burned himself with a Zephyros and he burned himself with a spell card. He's got 2300, and that's GG's. So I'm going first here. I have the Sign It Mining that'll give me access to my Lady Debug. I have a Falco, which of course, as we know, has a fantastic grave effect, but is also being a Salamangreat in the graveyard. If I discard it using the Sign It Mining, then that will allow me to trigger the effect of Salamangreat Gazelle. So that'll be fantastic. The Gazelle will trigger special summoning itself, and then it'll activate its effect to send a Jaguar to the grave. Then I can normal summon Lady Debug, which will allow me to search for a microcrater. So I pretty much have the full combo. I will turn my Lady Debug into a Salamangreat Balinx, and I'll turn both of these monsters into a Salamangreat Sunlight Wolf. Then I can use the effect of Jaguar to return the Link monster. And I'll explain in a second why I returned the Link monster instead of the Salamangreat Falco. It's because sometimes the Falco is actually what we want to have in the grave instead of that Link monster. So going to summon here, then it'll trigger the Sunlight Wolf to add back the Gazelle, which is exactly what we're going to do here. Then we're going to use our Sunlight Wolf and our Microcoder to go into Decode Talker. Of course, the Microcoder is going to search for our interruption here, the Sign It Crosswipe. We can activate the skill right away, but we can also use the Falco to return Jaguar to the hand. Why would we do that though? we're going to have the same amount of monsters on the field. However, the Falco will summon itself to the zone Decode Talker points to, so if the opponent wants to target us, we can negate it by tributing that Falco, which will then of course trigger the effect of Gazelle to summon itself to the zone Decode Talker points to, and then negate again. We have the alive to keep us alive, we have the crosswipe to interrupt the opponent, and we have Gazelle to prevent them from targeting us twice basically because of that Falco. So yeah, the opponent's going to be playing some Simorgh dragon deck, and I don't necessarily think that this is a deck that you should be playing. However, I am aware that they do have some good cards that I don't really want to resolve, so I am going to interrupt them at a certain point. He's going to activate that field spell. That field spell is fantastic. You can discard a card, then activate one of these effects, add a level 4 or lower Dragoonity from deck to hand, or send a dragon type monster from deck to graveyard. That's an incredibly powerful effect to send any dragon from deck to graveyard. That's the effect he's going to go for. However, he does discard a card in order to do it, so I will wait for him to discard a card, and then I will chain the crosswipe to destroy it. That will then trigger the Gazelle to summon itself to the zone Decode points to. Gazelle will send. Because I turned off his play, and because I will still have targeting protection, he's going to scoop it up. Okay, so I'm going second here. The opponent's actually playing Dark Magician. He's going to be able to normal summon Dark Magician, search for that fusion spell. So I know that one of these is a fusion spell, so whatever the other one is might be an actual disruption here. So I'm going to use my Silent Mining, discard the Falco because Falco is very good in the grave. I'm going to search for Lady Debug, because the nice thing about using Silent Mining to search for Lady Debug is Debug can search for Salamangreat Gazelle because it is a level 3 or lower. So that's what we're going to do here. He's going to use Warning Point. However, because I have the Signet Backdoor, I can chain the Signet Backdoor to banish the Lady Debug, so it won't even be affected by the Warning Point in the first place. So, going to banish that. It won't be affected. I'll still search. I'll search my mirror using the Signet Backdoor, and the Lady Debug will search a Salamangreat Gazelle. And because the mirror was added from deck to hand, it'll be able to summon itself from the hand. Then that will trigger the Foul to summon itself. Then I can use the Falco to target one of my monsters to add it back to my hand. He's going to chain his fusion spell here. It's not really going to make a difference. God damn, he had 3 Dark Magicians. Anyway, so he's going to summon this, right? And the cool thing about Dark Magicians is that if it is destroyed, it will summon a Dark Magician and a Dark Magician Girl from hand, deck, or graveyard. So if I happen to destroy this, then he will float into 2 more monsters. I don't want to do that, so I want to get rid of it without destroying it, right? So I'm going to return that mirror so I can have it later on to get that Falco, right? Then I will turn my Foul into a Balinx, which will then trigger the Gazelle effect. I'm going to summon that Gazelle from hand and use Gazelle's on summon effect to send a copy of Jack Jaguar, of course. And then we're going to go into Sunlight Wolf, and then we can use the graveyard effect of Jack Jaguar, returning the Foul to special summon itself, which will trigger the Sunlight Wolf to add back the Gazelle. Then we can go into Decode Talker, and I didn't use Microcoder. That is my bad. I should have used Microcoder, I think. But regardless, the extension I have, I'm going to be perfectly fine. So I'm going to activate the skill, then I'm going to use Microcoder and my other monster to go into Code Talker. Microcoder is going to search me a copy of Signet Crosswipe, and I still have more to do. I can go into Firewall Dragon, then I can use the trap to banish my Decode Talker, which will trigger his effect to top deck any card. Top deck a card. If it is a spell trap, he can set it, and if it is a spell trap, he can activate it the same turn. So, you know, bummer, right? But I'm gonna Firewall Dragon bounce his Dark Magicians, and he is going to set a back row, and I'm going to activate Salamangreat. I'm trying to bait it out. Salamangreat Mirror can discard Salamangreat Sanctuary to special summon itself. He's going to chain his Crackdown to steal my Firewall Dragon. Wow. But I'm going to chain the Signet Crosswipe, tributing my own Firewall Dragon, destroy his Dark Magician, which will then allow me to use the graveyard effect of my Recoder Live to resummon my Decode Talker. My Salamangreat Mirror will be special summoned, and I can attack for game. This is how we play through things, ladies and gentlemen. You can see this deck is very explosive. It keeps doing a lot of things. It keeps playing on the opponent's turn even. But it is very complicated. You're probably going to be sitting there thinking during the duel, so you might actually be running your timer down, so definitely be wary of that. And if you feel like you have have any issues with the deck, be sure to tell me about it in the comments, and I might be able to help you figure out how to do it better next time. But yeah, let me know how you feel about this deck in the